let's discuss this topic that Eric Musco posted on the forums. It's also duplicated on Reddit. He answered, I feel like every PvP question that's been pending to date. People have been asking these questions on the stream as well. We've discussed some of them before, but for the first time ever, like Eric Musco's arranged all the questions and answers in a single thread. So yeah, pretty much answers everything that PvPers have been asking for a while now. So let's go ahead and discuss these questions and of course primarily answers that's been given to them. So anyways, here goes. Eric Musco's written, "Hey folks, one thing that I know we have received a lot of varying questions around is the topic of PvP in SWTOR. As many of you have surely seen, we're going to have one of our PvP designers, Alex Modney, on our Thursday livestream, meaning today. If someone doesn't know, today they're going to have an official livestream playing PvP on Prophecy of the Five. I think it was 9:30 p.m. GMT or something, so it's in like 2.5 hours, 3.5 hours, something like that. But anyway, as with most of our streams, we have quite a few questions which are commonly asked by PvPers. I talked with the combat team about many of your questions and get answers to many of the commonly asked questions. Below you'll find those questions and answers." Okay, I got it. You really like the word questions. "Will we ever be able to choose a specific warzone to queue for?" Now, actually, quite a few people asked me this question, or rather suggested that it would be a cool thing, and I for one would like to see it too, but personally I don't feel it happening because primarily for the population reasons. There are not that many people playing. Well, actually, there is a significant amount of people queuing, at least for the normals, but when you consider the splits with two different factions and each and every player's ability to choose specific war zones, and with how many war zones there are right now with arenas and 8-man war zones and second hardball map adds into the rotation, it might create starvation for certain maps and stuff. So here's the answer. From the design side, we do like the idea of allowing our players to be able to impact which war zone they want to queue for, but it is not as simple as letting everyone select which war zone they want and call it a day. Because of a few reasons, queue population preventing de facto best war zone, making sure all the war zones are best played, etc. It would require a fully fledged design around that new queuing system in order to make sure the system was sustainable in queue times and so on. There are no current plans for the near future to implement this feature, and that's exactly, this is nothing unexpected, to be honest. Well, like I said before, none of the answers to these questions are really unexpected. This is something that that was pretty much obvious even before it's been answered here. So yeah, this feature probably not coming. Let me rephrase the answer. It's probably not coming unless the PvP population booms and suddenly increases 2-3 times at least. For this system to be sustainable, just as Mr. Musco says here. Have you considered implementing a Hardball League? We have certainly seen a lot of suggestions around the creation of a Hardball League for sure. Implementing a Hardball League has a special place in our Wall of Crazy, but it's not in our current roadmap. Again, this is pretty much tied to population. Like a lot of questions answered in this post here are really tied into population and the amount of people actually queuing and interested in these features. Like if there have been 3 times more of us than there currently are, it would be it would reduce it would increase, rather not reduce, it would increase the interest of developers of actually making this features go live. Currently, the current population just doesn't allow for healthy queues for all of these separate features. Unfortunately, like Hardball League, it would be amazingly fun, but imagine if half the people currently queuing for normal war zones or ranks would get up and start playing that Hardball League only. What would happen to like other PvP modes? So yeah, like this seems fun. You see, they're not completely eliminating the possibility of actually implementing this feature, but hey, if people suddenly just starts playing this one particular game mode, what happens to all the other ones? Personally, I wouldn't want to be seeing normal PvP queues being starved, or just as I wouldn't want to be seeing that new Hardball League lacking players. Just 16 people playing that league wouldn't be so good for its health. Why is Bolster in ranked PvP? Like I keep saying every time, I like Bolster. Don't even dare talk bullshit about it. The only problem in my book with Bolster is that it's constantly bugged. Why not just require a high level of PvP gear? Now, actually, I haven't read these answers yet, so that would be something I'm interested in too. This is a great question, and one we put a lot of thoughts into when the decision made to keep Bolster in ranked PvP. As many of you likely know, in the past we had an entry-level set of PvP gear called the Recruit sets, or Champion, Battle Master, and what was that last one? Hell, I forgot the name for the third set of gear from the very beginning. When was it? Gladiator? I think it was Champion, Gladiator, and Battle Master in the beginning. I forgot. God damn it! How could I? That's really weird. It's been so long though. Wearing these sets into a warzone would put you at an entry level of PvP. However, having recruit gear in the game created two important factors. The player needed to know that this is how PvP at max level worked. The player needed to then get the gear and actually equip it. Although this may seem like something which is obvious to many of you who are more seasoned in hardcore PvPers, this factor has been missed, led to many players' first experience being that they got completely stomped in PvP. Yes, exactly. This is important, and this is one of the factors. Although we understand that there are certainly dues to be paid when you play PvP, they shouldn't come right at the beginning of someone's PvP career. We also want the ranked population to be as high as possible with the level 55 bracket, so we have Bolster in place. The more players can participate in the system. Now, you know, I do not necessarily agree with this one particularly, because bolstered players without appropriate gear in ranked is something that actually drags it down. This is an example where quantity as opposed to quality is not necessarily a good thing, because a lot of players actually quit ranked because of this thing. And I also talked about it even before ranked arenas were released, is that a lot of people queuing for ranked with disregard to their gear. For example, you could have seen me yesterday on my Marauder. Does not necessarily make it better for people. Yes, the queues perhaps are somewhat faster, but the experience itself, it's not all that good, unless of course you consider seeing someone with 27k HP dealing 10k damage a good experience for you and your team. The best solution for this situation was a systematic approach which puts all players on an even footing when they enter the system. We know that some feel the best solution is to simply make everyone have the same gear and stats when in PvP, so so that it is purely a measure skill and skill alone. However, we feel that as an MMO, gear progression is a major cornerstone in its long-term gameplay. Well, I guess while I would personally be one of these people who feels like equalizing all the stats and measuring its third skill alone is the best choice, but I can kind of see what he means by saying that this is an MMO game, and I do not necessarily disagree with this. Like, yeah, gear progression has always been a big part of MMORPG, so not willing to completely remove it from PvP is not a necessarily wrong move. We feel that Bolster takes both of those ideas into account and lands as a nice middle ground. Yeah, I agree, absolutely. Having Bolster is much better than having Recruit gear, and not only for the reasons he's outlined here in his response. It's very unfortunate that Bolster has experienced issues since its implementation, which certainly creates pain points for our PvP community. Yes, a lot of them. You should have fucking listened to people when they reported bugs with the system, and maybe worked a little bit harder on it. However, we'll continue to work to ensure that Bolster is working as intended. Well, thank you for your great promise. So when Rise of the Hut Cartel, it came out more than a year ago now, right? And hell, they're still working. There are still bugs with the Bolster. Come on, just give it a little bit of a push, damn it. Kick your combat team or whoever gets to develop this feature and make them friggin' hunt all the bugs. Put hard restrictions on how much low level gear can be bolstered, and you will not have any problems like what a lot of PvPers are experiencing with these things. Anyways, I think we can all agree that having the first time PvP be a positive experience will go to great length to ensuring that those folks stick around and continue to PvP. Well, he is actually forgetting something that most people... I mean, maybe he's not forgetting, but I don't necessarily accept this judgment as a justifying point for Bolster. Doesn't mean I like Bolster. Don't get me wrong, but using a player's first experience in PvP as justification for Bolster is not necessarily making the best points you could here, because most people actually start PvPing at early levels, or at least in the mid game. I would probably think that 95% of people who are interested in PvP, they check it out in the early levels of their progression. So yeah, when they come to level 55, they should already have some idea of how this is done. But Bolster actually has a lot of other benefits. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that Eric Musco could have made himself better understood if he made some other examples, not just your first experience in PvP at level 55. I would like to know how many people actually have their first PvP match at 55. So let's look at the chat. People are just kissing ESO. Hey, what do you mean don't expect anything good from Eric Musco? He's just a mouthpiece for the company. What do you mean don't expect anything good from him? He's a good guy. Don't be negative to him. He communicates good, he has a sense of humor, but he doesn't make these answers. It's something he receives from the people who actually develop the game. He just well, I guess he just words them properly. And but I know, I mean, you would actually blame the guy who relays the information rather than the one who actually gives it to him. So it's understandable where you're coming from. Will you be implementing cross-server queues? Well, the answer is short. This question has been answered on every of their live streams and several times in the past. We have no plans at this time to implement cross-server queues. We've discussed this like a ton many times, that from a development standpoint it shouldn't be hard to do it. Why the hell don't they want to? No idea. Regardless of how this game was made, a matter of creating cross-server queues is actually writing well, I wouldn't say small piece of netcode, but a piece of networking code, establishing a separate servers to handle requests and just, cross-server is a matter of just handling instances on a separate server. Unless that is impossible for whatever reason, I have no idea why. Would that be so? Like, creating cross-server capabilities shouldn't be hard. Will you be introducing rewards in future seasons to recognize those players who have achieved the highest of ratings? 1500 seems like a low bar for some players. For starters, we have seen a lot of feedback around this very topic on the forums. Please keep it coming. This is a very tricky thing to design around, as no matter where you put the breakpoint, someone can potentially feel like they're not getting the rewards they deserve, and that is true. Well, look, and to be and to be honest, at least from my experience, 1500 at this point in time on certain servers is not necessarily all that low. Yeah, what bastard dares to say 1500 is a low bar? No friggin' way. I know how to play this friggin' game, but I'm so unlucky. I just. Well, anyways, we took this to heart when trying to decide where best to place the breakpoint for reward tiers. For us, given the rank amounts to only the top 5%, felt like a good breakpoint, since that will still make it very rare. And among these 5%, actually quite a few, it's just quite a few alts of just the same players, because there are not that many PvPers in general. There are even less who do ranked, and of course of all these people, only just a handful who can actually make it past 1500. Well, actually anyone can make it past 1500, but if they're somewhat lucky, but you have to put a lot of dedication into it, and even more luck. If you don't have sufficient skills, and even if you do have them, there's still a matter of luck, which also boils down to like people coming in under gears and that boss thing we discussed just few minutes ago. But yeah, well, whatever. We'll continue to use player feedback as we make decisions about future seasons rewards. We have no announced changes planned at this time, however. But this question is actually it's really interesting. I wouldn't expect something like that to come out so soon, especially considering that it's like it's just been first season of ranked arenas. But in the long run, if like ranked community is still alive, which might not be, looking at the current health, it would be cool to have some extremely unique rewards to some very few people who have been doing good for themselves over several seasons, like something extremely unique that wouldn't be obtainable by no other means. I feel what could bring life back into ranked is, of course, a set of extremely unique and useful rewards to the players. just like promising ranker mounts actually spiced up ranked PvP, if only for a little bit. I feel like releasing some kind of arrangements of long-term gold rewards for the future seasons would inspire players to come and play. Will you be bringing back 8v8 ranked war zones? No, that was also it's also tied to population, seriously. Did he get logged out? Yes, well, sad. Are there any plans of expanding open world PvP? And by expanding, like, you quite a few different things can be meant by the word expanding. Is it like introducing rewards? Is it like getting something similar to the first Ilum V1 into the game? Is it just adding more world PvP areas and stuff? Because right now world PvP is not really all that bad. There's a lot of world PvP during events. There is Section X, there is always Oricon, there is Zerka Asteroids, CZ, whatever its name is, where world PvP happens on the regular basis. So what exactly is meant by expanding? Currently we have no plans of expanding open world PvP, specifically to say we don't have any plans to introduce any new systems which offer rewards around it. And I wonder, do people really expect rewards for open world PvP to come? Still, I think this should have been an already closed topic. It's been said a lot of times before that open world PvP in this game will be limited to what you get in some closed off environments like Oricon. However, we will continue to encourage open world PvP in events and future content. That's exactly the thing. Some examples of this would be Oricon Daily Area and the shared questing areas of the Ragdoll event. There we go. But once again, without knowing what exactly was meant behind this question, because it can mean like several things. Alright, let me go back into the game so I wouldn't have to listen to this music playing itself on repeat. But yeah, it's not all of the questions, it's just questions that have been answered before. Well, I mean, all the questions they've answered, we have no plans to. It's really not a surprise. They haven't had plans for these things for a while, but people keep hoping, and well, it's understandable because some of these things, like cross-server queues, are kind of important to the health of these games. And for whatever reason they're not being introduced, but at the same time it's been known they're not planning on adding these things for a while now, but people keep asking, so yeah. Are there any plans to address teams having healer hybrids in arenas fighting against teams without healer, and probably tank hybrids too? That would be I guess because how the game is designed, I don't feel like it's really possible. This is a question of how long we want to wait to pop an arena match when it relates to hybrids. We could, in theory, create restrictions around matchmaking to pair you only against someone extremely similar to your character in both rating and spec layout. However, if we did that, it would have very serious effect on how long a queue takes to pop. And yes, pretty much again, it's not impossible to limit this all, I would guess. Although looking at how much it takes them to balance out matchmaking in terms of classes and roles, sometimes looking at the normal queues, one has to wonder: is it really easy for them to tweak their own system? Once again, this all comes down to the population, really. Perhaps in theory we could assume it's not really all that hard to limit certain things and create matchmaking rules around it, but will there be people actually to sustain the system? Probably no. Look at the Bastion. Ranked queues are pretty damn dead over there, and any kind of restriction would just make it even longer. I guess it's not exactly possible to go from known to even less. But yeah, if there were people by some lucky events, if the stars aligned and there were people for ranked queues, it would only lead to them not being able to play against each other. So this is just how the game is set up right now, and I guess it just have to be taken as a necessary evil for everyone to be able to play. The only option to address this would be to tighten restrictions on matchmaking, but this will result in greatly increased queue length, which is not favorable. So basically, no, this is not happening. You have to unfortunately just swallow it up against hybrid tanks and hybrid healers. What about the issue of 3v4 matches in arenas? This typically occurs due to a player crashing before loading into a match, which creates a situation where one team will have one less player. In this situation, we have made the decision that matchmaking will not backfill that player. I don't really know why. It could try to backfill for the next round, because why not? This is because by the time we can accurately detect that a player has crashed, and then select the player to backfill in the crashed player's place, the first round would already be in progress or over. In this case, backfilling would turn negative situations for 4 players into negative situations for 5 players, and we are not fond of that idea. On the plus side, our rating system takes 3v4 into account when awarding rating at the end of the match. The team with 4 will not be rewarded nearly as well for winning as they would in the normal match, nor the team with 3 be punished as severely for losing. But that's the thing, they will still be rewarded, and the losing team will still be punished, and in most cases 3-on-4 scenario is unwinnable if we're talking even about the solo queue rating rated. But still, teams the thing here is that 3 other people who are willing to play are getting punished because of a single person, when in theory you could still make it so they wouldn't. And currently, even though the system takes like 3v4 into consideration and removes less ELO as well as awards less ELO, it's still noticeable. And like personally, as someone who has to play from behind and in a team of 3 people, I'm not to blame that someone else has crashed. Yeah, you remove some ELO from him, he's crashed, sometimes it's beyond his control, understandable, but I'm not to blame in this situation, so I feel like they could have improved in this field. Doesn't feel like they want to, although they could. And also granting free ELO just because someone has rage quit and doesn't want to fight, I feel like it's not something that should exist, but that's my personal opinion, of course, and not everyone feels the same. I guess the enemy team is not to blame either, that we have one less player. So yeah, this, as I guess, could be debated, but the current system is not so bad either, I would assume. I've known systems much worse. So what currently is in the game is not so bad in this, but I feel like they could have still made effort to backfill someone, at least for like the second round. Maybe provided them some favorable ELO conditions, so like if he was backfilled into a game that's already won or lost the first round from a behind spot, they would still well, I don't know, something could be done, I feel. but if nothing's done, it's not really all that bad either. It's just one of these necessary evil things that exist, and not much can be done about them. The rating system. What exactly do you feel is wrong with the rating system, though? Matchmaking? Yeah, they could make some tweaks about it, but what do you mean fixing the rating system, though? Matchmaking will sometimes place the same advanced classes on the same teams. An example would be 4 power attacks against 4 assassins. Are there any improvements planned here? This is a great question, and we agree that this is certainly less than optimal. Yeah, sometimes you could see it on the stream, like some ridiculousness for healers against 4 DPS, when it could make the game so much better if it was like 2 DPS against 2 DPS to healers against well, when if it would only mirror the teams. Matchmaking should certainly be better about how it assigns classes across each team, and we will be actively looking to make improvements. Well, at least this one particular question, they're stating they're looking to improve it, and that's good. I personally would love to see some improvements to matchmaking, so some situations where the games could be decent but they're not would change. 4 power attacks, 4 assassins. I'm not so concerned about mirror classes being on the same team, but rather mirror roles not being equally distributed. Like 4 healers against 4 DPS, such games should not exist. If it's the same faction, like, there should be some equal distribution. Huge rating gaps between players in any given arena match. But yes, this is all I can even foresee the answer. This is because of the population. There are just not enough people across each rating level to properly matchmake here. Typically, this issue occurs when there are not a lot of players in the arena queue. I think it may help to understand a bit about how our matchmaking works. Actually, if he explains a little bit, it would be interesting to know. Matches are based around the original character who's entered in matchmaking and what their rating is. Let's say a character is 1500 and enters the queue. Matchmaking will start looking for another 7 players that have them play with who are also 1500 at certain time intervals. That rating range is expanded both up and down in order to work to field the match. That actually explains why some people have to wait a little bit longer before the game actually pops, even though there's sufficient amount of players in queue right now. So yeah, this explains. I kind of thought that was the case, but this is the first time it was officially stated that this is how it works. I at least haven't heard this before. Over time, that range will continue to be expanded, so up and down rating from that base player is why you could see 1200s and an 1800 player in the same game, as they're both 300 rating from the original character in the queue. Okay, but what do you mean original character? What if like 8 people queue at the same time? Who will be the original character? This is exactly confusing, like the term original character used in this question. Who the hell is original? And what if original character is 2200? This actually quite, well, not quite, but a little bit explains why me, for example, and Osdo, who's like 25 or 2200, alone he's operative, and I only 1000 on mine, couldn't get matched together, because yeah, it's all revolves around someone. who like expands up and down. This is like the presence of that original character around whom matchmaking is based is slightly confusing. So, for example, if I am 1000 damage on my operative, there's another operative, Osdo, who has 2200. We could possibly get a Q pop, but the matchmaking is based around someone who is 2500 ELO. So he stays in the matchmaking, and matchmaking is looking for players for that guy. He keeps expanding up and down, but obviously he would expand to Osdo much faster than he would to me. But aside from me and Osdo, there is nobody else in the matchmaking queue. So let's assume there are 7 players that this guy who is 2500 ELO has already found. There are 7 players, and there's me, who's much lower in rating than all of these guys. He's found 7 players, among them a single healer who's Osdo at 2200 ELO. He's found 7 players, and there is me. And if I was taken into account, we would have a game. But simply because there's like this range extension between in certain intervals of time, he doesn't find me. And like, I don't know how to freaking better explain it. My English sucks at times like this. Sorry, people, but I hope you get the idea. The presence of this character, which matchmaking takes as a base to create a game, is actually that I feel holds Q-Pops back, and they should make it maybe they should completely remove rating from consideration, because, well, obviously there are not a lot of people queuing on all the servers, and taking rating into account when creating games right now is actually holding it all back. I feel like if they remove this from equation completely, it would help rank queues much more, because currently creating games based on rating is pretty much counterproductive to the whole affair. Alright, so what I didn't know is that for whatever reason, matchmaking bases his game search on a particular someone who enters the queue. I would assume it uses the old first come first serve mechanic, because since the ancient times this game used to arrange teams based on who queued first. Anyways, what about players who sync queue to specifically play each other, aka match fixing? Like, knowing the current population, do people actually care about this kind of stuff? This is an issue which is again due to the amount of players in the queue. That is true, because otherwise, if there were a lot of people queuing at the same time, that kind of thing wouldn't be possible. But then again, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Some people just want to play against each other to, to see who is better, to compete against one another. I don't feel like rating trading is that widespread and common of an issue. If a group of 8 players wanted to fix the queue to play against each other, they may be able to do so at some weird off time for their server. However, we have systems in place to detect these types of actions. Interesting. And when Season 1 ends, those players will find themselves without any rewards at all. Interesting. I wonder... Now, this is interesting just because they're saying they have a system to detect match fixing. But first of all, how the hell do you tell whether it is fixed matches or just people trying to find games and play ranked and just have fun? It has to be an extremely accurate queue because, for example, take Prophecy of the 5 or the Bastion, where basically it's 2-3 teams queuing all the time. Will it be considered a match fixing or what exactly? Because if they have one of these far from perfect systems, but let's be honest, whatever system they can have in place to detect match fixing, it's definitely not perfect, because nothing in this game is, and this is not an offense, but it just cannot be accurate. And looking at the population health, from what I know, Tomb of Freedom Net, Prophecy of the 5, the Bastion are the servers I'm familiar with, and currently the situation with ranked would probably be the most healthiest on Tomb of Freedom Nets, where like several teams queue up. But on Prophecy of the 5, people still want to play, but the amount of teams are not really all that big. It's 2, 3, sometimes 4 teams, but quite often it's just 2 teams getting one another. Will that be considered a match fixing? I would assume that the system will detect this kind of behavior and report it. So will these people not be allowed their rewards for playing matches between one another simply because there is no one else to play against? And that would totally not be fair. And we would really need a clarification on this, because if that's the case, it's just not right. They should remove this freaking system and scrap it completely. He's been answering all these questions, bringing current population to light, like the issues with how many people currently play, but at the same time, he also says it's possible to just match fix, but what exactly is considered match fixing? This isn't clear. There's just not that many teams, and when 2 groups of people have been playing this game for too long but still want to play, just keep going against each other, and sometimes they try ridiculous stuff like 4 healers. Recently we've seen Prophecy of the 5 playing 4 healer orcs. Is it considered matchmaking? Or match fixing? I don't know, and I wouldn't want it to be, simply because people are trying to have fun in their own way. There is just absolutely no ulterior motive behind their actions, and it wouldn't really be cool to see them absolutely mistakenly being taken for match fixes. Anyways, do you have any plans to address overpowered hybrid builds which are present in arenas? Well, class balance is absolutely separate thing. Overpowered hybrid builds. Our history of class balance shows that we attempt to discourage overpowered hybrid builds when and wherever possible. We're constantly balancing classes, and we'll take action if something is not falling into line with class balance. But you have to remember that although I have to be fair, recently class balancing has been picking up. So yeah, there is no reason not to believe that they will be trying to address class balance issues. The only thing I would like to point out here is that I'm really hoping they will not be as drastic as the changes currently coming to Smash, because these are ridiculous. We'll continue to monitor these builds and just as necessary. So yeah, that's the questions, pretty much all of the questions I think that's been asked in the recent days. Some answers are pretty disappointing, like the cross-server queues, but at the same time, like I said, they're not exactly unexpected. That's the same answers we've known for quite a while now, so although each one of us probably has been hoping they would finally say something different and give us hope. But yeah, like I said, WildStar people. I know WildStar doesn't have lightsabers, but it's looking promising for PvPers, and also it offers something new in terms of combat. But anyways, predictable answers, not all of them are so bad, others are disappointing. Overall, a pretty good list of questions and answers. I'm satisfied. Simply because there is nothing to be unsatisfied about. Disappointing answers are pretty much the answers that have been floating out there for a while now. So they do not come in as a shock. One particularly interesting answer is, of course, explanation as to how rated matchmaking currently works and how it looks for players. What I would love them to do is completely remove matchmaking based on rating right now, and it would really help. And just make it as make it similar to normal matchmaking, where first come first served basis is an effect that would I feel really improve queue times, because well, I've given you an example of myself having like 1500 rating difference to another healer, not getting a game because of the difference, because matchmaking is looking for someone closer to the higher rating than lower one. And so both of us are not getting a game. Removing rating equations would help us, of course, and get games much faster. So anyways, these are the questions. If you are looking to read them yourself, just head to Reddit and check out frequently asked PvP questions post, or it is also available on the official forums. I, for one, am going back to Pro 35. I'm gonna play some more games.